private space or on the outside in a public space, the concept of technology gatherings has gained a lot of traction. And we have seen it. I'm sure we have all participated in it in some instances. The Zoom Christmas parties we are recommending. And yes, you may not be able to touch and to feel the way that you would like to, but guess what? It is a safer bet, and you still can find a way to encourage the season and the spirit of the season by viewing your loved ones, your friends, and engaging in that. Smaller, intimate functions outdoors or against indoors at our home is what is recommended with the 15 maximum limit. And reaching out to your friends and family as opposed to going out. So keep it intimate, keep it limited, and explore ways to interact, to interface while observing. And of course, wearing the mask is critical. As I said before, we're not restricting Santa. Santa is allowed to roam and to move about because Santa is symbolic of the spirit of Christmas. And the spirit of Christmas is not infected with COVID. The spirit of Christmas is sharing, it's caring, it's giving thanks. And in that regard, Santa is free to roam because he's immune to the COVID virus. We must make Santa live through us while protecting ourselves and protecting those around us. And that is the expectation. I want to now turn quickly to the Vice President of the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Oral Heaven, and I want to get a little update from you, sir. Thanks for being here. On how you view the season, how you view the protocols. What are your members saying, and you know, any encouragement that you may want to bring to this response?
Thank you, Minister. Good evening, everyone. Now, the business community of Montego Bay welcome the protocols because we know the seriousness of the situation that we all face. And just yesterday, we conducted a survey of our membership as to the additional 1 hour, moving the curfew time to 10 p.m. And the members welcome that move. They also are comfortable with the restrictions that have been placed on the country as it relates to the peak period, which is the 24th, 25th, and the 31st of January, where from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. Because we know that, yes, the business community need to make money, but we also have to be wise and know what is happening to our economy. Because we might extend and give some hours here, we make money, but what happened as it relates to the spread of this virus? We're comfortable in assisting in flattening the curve, and that's our mission. And our membership support that. They want to see the flattening. As a matter of fact, they want to see the back of this thing so that we can continue move on with our lives. But the reality is, the membership of the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce, they support this move by the government, and our members know that the vendors in Montego Bay, the vendors around the country, as a matter of fact, not all will benefit from a 10 p.m. because of what happened. We know Grand Market and what happened during that time. But the reality is, we have to be mindful of what is happening. So we support the initiative. Also, the JHTA ambassador, COVID ambassador program that is happening now, the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce also supports this program. So we see this as measures to help us to flatten the curve and also to be better able to cope with this, our health system and also the economy with this. What is happening.
I was downtown Montego Bay, Sam Sharp Square area in the shopping district, the market district today, and we had launching the Mask Up Before You Talk Up campaign and really talking to a lot of the vendors, the people on the streets, some persons going into the stores. Is there any way, I know you spoke about the ambassador program, but how do you get persons to perhaps come out earlier so that they can do what they have to do and not have to be potentially at risk of breaching the protocols? Is there any particular offering or initiative or approach that the Chamber
Well, similar to the initiative of the GHT, which is a matter of educating the business community, educating the vendors. It's a matter of having a program that will show them the need to be out early so that you can be off the street on time. They can make some money and be off the street on time to stick to the program. So what we're doing, we're encouraging through the chamber, the wearing of masks, all the protocols that we need to practice. So what we can do further as a chamber is to increase our educational effort, increase the reach, the communication with our members so that they too can communicate with their customers the need to be out early during this season. I also want to acknowledge the presence of our mayor, who I'm sure is doing and has more information on what is being done to ensure that people come out early and leave the streets early before the curfew hours.
Right. I want to just recognize the mayor, of course, too, because he was out in the streets with me today with the community health aides and the public health team. Mayor Williams, thank you for being here, sir. And I know you're a very busy man, so we appreciate your presence. I may want to ask you a question shortly, so just hang on right there, because as the mayor of the town, I'm sure the challenge of managing the need to be out there as opposed to managing the protocols of mask wearing would be a burden on you over the next few weeks. But thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Welcome,
We're happy
Mr.
to hear that your umbrella, your body, the chamber, is supportive of the protocols.
Definitely.
We want to encourage Jamaicans to enjoy the season and find ways to be creative about it and give the support to, go out and buy your gifts and so on. But please remember the protocols. And I think
Definitely.
that's the substantial message that you are encouraging, and we appreciate that. All right, Mayor, you want to join us for a minute Mayor, I want to hear from you. Give them on this side here. I want to hear from you as to what how is it going in the town, downtown, with the new measures, and what are the challenges and how are you coping?
Good evening to viewers and listeners all over Jamaica. Let me begin by commending Dr. Christopher Tufton and his team for the tremendous job they have been doing in managing this coronavirus. As we approach the Christmas season, there's a tendency for us to want to party. That has been happening for centuries. And so I, as the mayor of Montego Bay, would want to discourage partying for this Christmas, because persons will have an option. You can party, yes, but you will run the risk of probably seeing or having your last Christmas, whereas if you forego the partying, you will be able to see several other Christmases. So I personally want to appeal to the citizens in and around Montego Bay to make sure that they observe the safety protocol. Mask up before you, I would say, shut up or talk up. You need to make sure that that is done. And of course, the social distancing is very important, as well as doing your sanitizing and, of course, washing your hands frequently. Because as far as the experts are concerned, this is the only way they see us preventing the spreading of this deadly virus.
So, Mayor, do you find that persons are concerned about the 10 p.m., the shoppers or the merchants?
Well, yes. They, of course, would want more time because it's going towards the festive season. But as the mayor, frankly, I have a problem with the anticipated crowd that we'll have during the festive season. So you're probably aware that I am trying desperately to get the vendors off the main street because that's where most of them congregate. And I want to get them off the main street. They have been asking about the Grand Market. That I am not going to accommodate because that is going to have people gathering all over the place. So I want to make sure that that is prevented.
Is there, I mean, in keeping with the season and the prospects of sales and so on, what would be the sort of alternative in terms of them, you know, being given an opportunity to sell and so on? Is it that they come out early, that they are located in a particular other area?
Yes, because of the time that they are required to leave the street because of the curfew. Yes, they are coming out much earlier. And to be quite frank, we do not really discourage them, no, because we know that by the curfew time they are supposed to be off the street. And they will say, well, it's COVID time, they need to make some money, so we should give them a little more time so that they could come out earlier. So that is happening.
Okay.
But strictly, the curfew must be observed.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. The truth is that it is a challenge because persons are accustomed to later hours. So we're not going to deny that. It runs very contrary to the customs, to the tradition, to the culture. This is why we continue to encourage and hopefully motivate persons to find other ways to make it work. So, Your Worship, thank you very much for that contribution. And thank you for representing the Chamber here in Montego Bay. And we will continue to work together because that's going to be so necessary. At this time, I'm going to invite our President of the Jamaica Medical Doctors Association, Dr. Mindy Fitzhenry, to help us also to understand from the perspective of the medical fraternity, certainly from the perspective of the JMDA, what the perspective is re the COVID protocols and the preparation by her members to deal with what is normally a very active or busy season. Dr. Fitzhenry, are you online? Is she online?
Hi, good evening.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes, hearing you very well. We're focusing on Christmas and the COVID protocols. Thank you for joining us. We know you have a big responsibility as president of the JMDA, and just wanted to ask you what your perspective is on the protocols that have been announced from your membership perspective, and how that may affect what you have to do, and maybe some advice, if you will, in terms of how we may approach this season.
As a membership, we welcome the protocols that have been put in place. As your data has suggested, in the western part of the island. And so it's becoming more and more difficult for our members at Cornwall Regional, especially, to be managing the influx of cases. And we are unfortunately expecting that there will be continued increase over the next couple of weeks. So our members there are putting in as best of an effort as possible. They're working as a family and as a team. So having persons being restricted after certain hours will be helpful in terms of the management of the increased load that is expected on that side. As a body, we continue to work together. We continue to encourage all of the protocols set forth by the Ministry of Health and Wellness. It is still a bit disheartening, though, to see that the general public seems to be getting, as we all like to refer to as COVID fatigue, where persons are not wearing the mask appropriately, they're not staying physically distant, not washing their hands. And a big one that we're seeing is persons not obeying the quarantine or the isolation orders. So we want to just encourage the public to please, please, please follow the protocols set forth. We are trying and we are doing as much as we can, but it will be of minimal effort if they're also not playing their part.
Tell me, Doc, what's a typical profile of the persons that are coming in to the hospital system with the virus? I mean, is there a typical profile? And
we're actually seeing a mix of persons. So we're seeing some younger persons who are coming in who have no chronic illnesses, who are having shortness of breath and high fevers. So that's another thing we want to remind persons, that although the data is showing that older persons who have chronic illnesses may not be faring as well, we do have younger persons who are also quite ill. And then it's important to remember that younger persons can also have chronic illnesses like diabetes or other autoimmune conditions that can also give them a more complicated course. So we know that persons are trying to protect grandma or older aunts and uncles, but you may not be aware of the persons among you who appear younger and appear healthy, but may have an illness as well. So you can't always just look at somebody and know who needs to be protected. So because of that, we want persons to protect everybody around them, because you don't know who it is that could need the additional support and protection.
of course, I have to mention the stress levels of our frontline workers and medical workers. Certainly your membership would fall right there because you're on the front line for the most part. What's the fatigue level like, and how are you coping with that? And how could the public or otherwise assist you in going through this period, this Christmas season, in a way that can manage that process?
As you rightfully said, it's been very difficult on all the frontline workers, the doctors, the nurses, the support staff. And we're trying to stick together as much as a team and work in what we call a buddy system. So you check in with other persons that are on your shift with you, you check in with your friends, you try to encourage them to remember to eat, to try and get as much sleep as possible. And if they do need help, that they reach out for help. We have fortunately had many opportunities or many outlets for persons to get assistance mentally, and those have been working in the past. And so we have been continuously encouraging our members to reach out to these avenues that are available, whether it is for counseling or whether they need a few days off because of mental fatigue or because of anxiety or depression. We have, even as a population, we've been seeing more persons present with anxiety or depressive episodes or features of that because of what's happening worldwide. And so our doctors and our frontline workers are not immune to that. So we encourage them to look after themselves as well, because as you can imagine, if the frontline workers go down, then it would be very difficult to continue to care for the other persons that come in. And so mental health care has been a very crucial part of the fight for the doctors as well as for the general public.
Some weeks ago, we discussed the possibility of the triple threat, flu, dengue, and COVID. Just wondered if you had a sense of what was happening in terms of that combination in the public system, or your members would have reported on what they're seeing.
There are some locations that are reporting cases that appear as all three. And so we're just having to do our best in terms of ensuring that the history is taken well and we can get all the adequate information that we need to try and delineate to see which one it seems to be more likely. But we are seeing an increase in some dengue cases in certain parishes. And so we are on the lookout to ensure that not just because COVID is here, that we are also on the lookout for these, and we want to remind the public that just because COVID is there, it doesn't mean that dengue is gone or that the flu is gone. So all precautions need to be taken to protect yourself against all three things.
And finally, I want to just put you on the spot a little and ask you to, just say what your advice would be as it relates to the season or Christmas season this year, the changes that you're going to make, maybe, and certainly the changes that you would recommend as part of the COVID response during this very important season for most of us.
Well, we have always been an advocate for following the rules set forth. So we encourage persons to stick to the limits of 15 persons or even less. If you know that you have many vulnerable persons in your household, we would recommend that you stick to the persons in your immediate household. We know that in Jamaica, persons love to go from house to house and eat dinner here, lunch here, Boxing Day, dinner at another location. But in order for us to protect the wider population at this point, I think it's clear that we need to protect everybody. And so we have to ensure that we take the proper protection that is needed. So for us, we are recommending that persons stick in as small a bubble as possible while still enjoying themselves and doing as much online link-ups as much as possible. We can't forget the mental impact that this could have on the older persons as well. So please ensure that you check in, you drop off some food for an older person that you know, you Zoom them in, you WhatsApp call them, you WhatsApp video them. But please don't forget the older persons who may be alone at this time.
Dr. Mindy Fitz-Hindley, thank you very much. We appreciate your coming on, appreciate your perspective, and we want to certainly thank your members for the work that they have been doing in the public health space and the collaboration, of course, with the rest of the public health system and infrastructure and team members. I think this is an important show of unity as we face the Christmas season. Thank you very much, and we will continue to dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We had a quick COVID conversation today, less than an hour. We're going into the question and answer segment now, but we think it's important to go over the Christmas protocols because this is a season that could literally make us or break us as we move into 2021. I want all of us to live to see 2021, and we're all hoping for a better year given what we've had to experience in 2020. There are glimmers of hope and signs of light, if you will, for 2021 with talk of a vaccine and the possibility of that vaccine being available in the first quarter, certainly by mid-year. And Jamaica is right there preparing. We will appoint a committee to deal with the coordination and logistics of distribution. You'll hear the specifics of that over the next week or so. But the vaccine represents a major hope for the world and certainly for us. And we are right there, and we are positioning ourselves to have access. In the meantime, however, our best response, there are the protocols that all of us are required to follow. So just to repeat, 15 maximum gatherings, whether you're in public spaces or in your home, 10 p.m. nightly to 5 a.m. curfew hours for the month of December. So that's 10 p.m. That's 1 hour up from 9 to 10 to 5 a.m. And 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. on Christmas Day and Boxing Day. And 10 p.m. December 27th to December 31st, which is New Year's Day. And then on New Year's Day, 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. And then we return on January 2nd to 15th to the 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew hours. So those are the critical sort of components of the new orders going into the holiday season. And we really want to encourage everyone to abide by them and to live true to the protocols in keeping with what we consider to be our best response to managing COVID, whilst trying to balance the livelihood and the lifestyle of the population. But I close by saying Santa will not be quarantined or isolated, because the spirit of Santa lives on and will continue to live on. So reach out to someone, say a good word, get your gifts, send them off to cheer up someone, make a call, maintain the 15 number limit, which means you have some options. You can visit persons who may be alone, and use the technology where necessary and where possible to entertain and engage. And remember, in all that we do, let's give thanks, because it is experiences like the COVID-19 pandemic that makes us appreciate what we have, and we should really take some time to reflect on the blessings and give thanks as we manage the process going forward into the new year. This is COVID Conversations, and we're going to ask now Stephen to take the mic and to let us know if there are questions. Stephen?
Thank you very much, Minister. Just reminding our colleagues on the Zoom to use the raised hand feature if they wish to pose a question to the members of the panel. We're going to begin with Janet Silvera from the Gleaner.
Thank you. Good evening. I have two questions. One of them is, how ready is the Cornwall Regional Hospital and the Falmouth Hospital to manage the strike in numbers? Because I couldn't hear anything that Dr. Mindy was saying. Just like you're hearing from me, is it Stephen that I want to find out?
Go ahead.
Also want to find out why Jamaicans are coming home from Christmas or any other period for that matter. Why we ask them to take a test? Not that they can't come if they take a test and they're positive. Why don't we give them that option of taking the test when they come in and taking another test 4 days later?
Okay, the sound quality is very poor, but I believe your first question was, what is the capacity of Cornwall Regional and Falmouth to manage any potential spike? We're seeing the numbers go up. We said that earlier. I'm going to ask our technical director, regional technical director, to give a perspective on that, and then I will I could comment on the second question, which is why not do a test on day before you get in and then after day 4 or 5. You want to go ahead?
Sure. So we have done several preparations to manage the spike. We have increased our capacity in terms of isolation spaces. We have plans in place to change spaces to manage if we have a surge, and we're managing the surge now in both hospitals. We have trained our staff. We are monitoring personal protective equipment so that the staff can do so safely. We have put in place protocols in terms of in the hospital to improve infection control. And we also have ensured that the staff is trained and there is staff welfare activities to ensure they're ready. In addition to managing the surge, there is the primary care and prevention aspect that works as well. So the preparation for the hospital also includes that improvement in terms of preventing those cases. So you will see our community response increasing. We're going to do more, and we've been doing more testing and more education in town centers, and we're doing more monitoring in institutions and in business places as well.
So there you have it. I mean, it's a combined effort. But remember too that where hospitals are at capacity, we do reserve the option of moving persons around to other institutions. So if Cornwall is full, then you have Noel Homes or other places, as the case may be. And right now, I think we're in a good place. We want to keep it that way So it's important that the message gets through and persons take the necessary precaution. The second question, probably could answer that, but you know, I've been given the brief on why we don't do it, that clinically there is no evidence to suggest that you are guaranteed.
Right, I didn't hear the full question, Minister. I know there was a question as to why we test before we come.
Yeah, why not do a test before and then do it a few days after? You wanna repeat the question?
Not hearing. If the question is repeating.
Okay, all right, here is the question. Tourists are allowed to come to Jamaica with their test. In other words, they do their test and they are allowed if their test is negative. My question is, I give the same option to Jamaicans who live overseas, who are coming over for vacation, and we test them 4 days after as well.
Okay.
So as the minister was saying, the evidence is not there to suggest that if you do that, there's a guarantee that you would not have COVID at all, because there is exposures that happen even after you do the test. In the airport, when you're leaving the area, you do the test. In the airport, when you come here, you test again, you have exposures that have happened. So because of that incubation period of 14 days, the risk is that you will still have it even if you test negative.
So there was also the reason why not test Jamaicans. Well, first of all, there was a view that Jamaicans coming in to their country should not be so restricted if they were not able to afford a test as opposed to a non-national. It's really national versus non-national. And so the decision was taken not to force nationals to test, but certainly to require them to quarantine. And as was said earlier, the quarantining arrangement still remains the best clinical option based on the period of time that the virus takes to show itself, if you will, for use a simplistic term. And I am told that there is no evidence to date to support the view that a test now and one 4 days after will reveal whether or not you have the virus, because the virus will take up to 10 days, I believe, in order to present itself in terms of symptoms. And that is why the ministry has not taken the decision to implement what has been recommended by some. Thank you. Any other question?
Yes, Minister, there's a question from Debbie Wright from the RGR Gleaner Communications Group. She's asking whether or not there are discussions to allow quick service restaurants to operate past curfew hours. Is this still on the cards, especially during the Christmas season?
Right now, the period that has been announced by the Prime Minister is 10 o'clock, 10 p.m., and that's the information that, as far as I know, is what will be enforced. I don't know of any additional hours. We deliberate on a regular basis. That is the Cabinet Subcommittee on COVID Matters, and of course, Cabinet meets every week. If that changes, then the public will be informed. But as of now, and in keeping with what the Prime Minister said in the Parliament on Tuesday, the 10 p.m. is for everybody.
Thank you very much, Minister. We're going to go to Kimon Francis from RJR.
Evening, actually from the Observer, Stevie. So I'm trying to get a breakdown of figures in terms of the Western parishes that are seeing an increase, because the increase is obviously the last. Where are the numbers moving from in terms of the week before and the last?
Okay, so.
Go ahead. You want to repeat the question for the
Yes.
listening public, because it
Yes.
was a little muffled.
Sorry. So the question was a breakdown in terms of where the cases are in the Western region. So To date, as of yesterday, we would have had a total in the Western region of 1,784 confirmed cases. Majority of those cases are in St. James, 1,104 cases, followed by Westmoreland with 362 cases, Trelawney with 237 cases, and Hanover with 218 cases, and those are cumulative cases. In terms of cases that we have now that are active cases, we have majority of those in St. James, 113, Trelawney, we have 28, Westmoreland 53, and Hanover 45. That's the breakdown of the numbers that we have as at yesterday evening.
Does that answer the question?
Not really. What I was asking is, since the last, how has the number increased? So if the week before it was 20 in St. James, what is it now this week? For us to say that the cases are increasing in the West.
Okay, I don't have that breakdown, but I think the curves that were shown by the national epidemiologist when she did her presentation earlier did show the bar chart with the cases going up by days, especially in Westmoreland, in St. James as well. And we have seen an uptick in Hanover as well.
She actually said that. She showed on the chart the downward trend bottoming out and a slight uptick. So it's moving now back up. And she did say that the numbers that are contributing to that uptick would be in the West. The specific numbers she had on the screen, but the change week over week, I don't think she had. So for you tomorrow, because it's there. Thank you. Next question.
Thank you very much, Minister. We're going to go to Christopher Thomas from the Gleaner Western office.
Yes, good night. Are you all hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Okay, okay. Dr. Tufton, I must admit, when I came on, I was having difficulty coming on, so I didn't quite catch all of what you were saying at the time. I think you were outlining the locations where the 15-person limit will be enforced. I'm not sure if you were speaking to churches at the time when I came on. Could you clarify that point, please?
Yes, sure. We said that there should be a maximum of 15-person gatherings, whether in a private space, a private domain, a house, or in the public space during the period leading up to Christmas and the New Year. And that applies across the board. I did say, based on what the Prime Minister said, that there be some consideration given to funerals, but more will be said on that, based on representations made by the church. The Honorable Prime Minister met with the church leadership, and I know there was a discussion around some of the concerns that they had, but the announcement for 15 is a standard announcement. Any other question?
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Miss. There was a follow-up from Janet Sevier. She's asking, so why don't we stop tourists from testing before coming in?
Why don't we stop tourists from testing?
Right.
You know, the issue really revolves around risks. And remember now, there is no silver bullet, I keep saying, to preventing the importation of COVID. In terms of the tourists or the non-national, they are subjected to testing, but that is not the only measure. So we understand the margins of error in the test, and the fact that they do a test doesn't guarantee that they are virus-free. When they come in, they're also subjected to a zone, the resilient corridor, we call it, that is also monitored, and they are restricted from movement outside of that zone. Unlike the nationals, who are required without the test to come in, but are required to quarantine for 14 days, which the tourist is not required to do. The nationals, therefore, will have the period of time, assuming all things work the way we expect, to stay in a space for 14 days to determine if they have the virus, and if there needs to be follow-up, then the follow-up takes place. So the testing of the tourists represents one of several methods as a sort of menu of methods that are put in place in order to increase the risk mitigation against the virus being brought in, and then of course the virus being spread. And it's on that basis, that's how we calculate or determine the measures to put in place. And if you want to comment more on that, no?
Yeah, just to say that the tourists do receive a quarantine order when they come. Their quarantine order applies to them staying on property. They are allowed to only leave those properties to visit tourist board approved sites that have specific protocols in place. So they do have a quarantine order as well that restricts their movement.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm going to go to Cassius Watson from Jamaica Social.
Hello, are you hearing me now?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, Cassius.
Okay. Good evening, folks. I came in quite late on this presser, but I have two questions. This is for the minister. Regarding airports, are there any changes upcoming or adjustments regarding the Ministry of Health and personnel, or activities or actions at the airport that will be different for the holiday season? That's one. And the second question is also again to the minister regarding, I think you had mentioned a couple months ago, maybe, that American Airlines had started some type of arrangement where they were testing people at the airport in Miami or somewhere in Florida. Is that still continuing, or do you know of any other airlines that have decided to do that? Pre-testing like at the airport? That's it.
Thank you. I'm going to ask our Chief Technical Director, or Regional Technical Director, sorry, to comment on maybe both questions if she has information on the second.
Okay, so in terms of changes at the airport, we have made some changes at the airport, which started on Friday. The changes made were to make the process electronic and smoother, so we spend less time with the passenger, as well as we ensure that persons don't have to stop at so many sites, so many points in the airport, and so the time spent will be less in the airport. We're preparing for the increased persons so that we don't have the crowding in the airport. So the major change is that when the person now, any arriving passenger that applies for an authorization will now have the quarantine order issued at the same time. So persons now apply online, they answer the questions, they will upload their test if they have to, and a quarantine order will be issued based on the responses that is given. You're expected to read the quarantine order and sign if you agree to the quarantine order. That helps us to reduce the touch points. But what we are doing is strengthening our screening in terms of ensuring that we do the checks for temperature, that we observe to ensure that there are no ill persons in the airport, and that we're able to change any orders that may need changing when they come. So that is the major change at the airport at this point. Right. Regarding the other question, I don't have the...
The only thing I'll say about the American Airlines proposal, as far as I know, I don't think it has been implemented, or certainly the government of Jamaica is not involved in any way in that process. I don't know of any other airline doing that, and that's the most I can say. I mean, I am aware that there was a proposal, as I had said, but we have not had any agreements with American Airlines or any other, for that matter. Steve.
Thank you very much, Minister. Final question is from Courtney Bard from RJR. That he's asking for a response to the doctor's complaint about not being paid certain benefits.
Right. So today I learned that a number of doctors have voiced some concerns about payments, the special incentive that are given to frontline workers during this period, and some other payments. I've asked for an investigation in the matter by the permanent secretary, and he has reported back to me since this evening to say that there is at least one institution reported to him by the regional health authorities, and the regional health authorities are the ones who do these payments. They manage that process. One institution in the Sierra region in St. Catherine that had such outstanding matters to be sorted out. There are complaints, however, from other doctors in other areas based on some checks that have been made. So I have asked for a meeting to take place tomorrow with the executive management, the permanent secretary, and the regional directors of the regions, and we will try to understand more what the nature of these concerns are. So I'm hoping that by tomorrow we will reconcile the discrepancies that are coming from the regional authorities with the doctors who are claiming not to have been paid. Clearly, our objective is to make good on the commitments that we make to our medical staff, and if there are any issues that needs to be sorted out, I would expect that they are sorted out in the shortest possible time.
All right, thank you very much, Minister. Those are all the questions from the teams. I'll turn to you for your closing remarks.
First of all, thank you, Stephen. Let me just thank all who have participated in this COVID discussion. I want to thank the Vice President of the Montego Bay Chamber, Mr. Oral Heaven, Dr. Mendy Fitzhenley of the Jamaica Medical Doctors Association, of course, our Regional Technical Director, Dr. Campbell Stennett, and His Worship the Mayor. Thank you very much, sir. You were with me earlier this evening and again with me tonight. I see Errol Green, who is the Regional Director for Western Region, who is in the audience, and the team that have helped to put this together. Let me apologize for the sound quality. It's unusual, and we'll try to make sure we fix that problem going forward. But I think this was an important session to have as we work our way into the holiday season. We cannot overemphasize the need to observe the protocols, the need to protect ourselves, to raise some amount of, not alarm, but certainly awareness of the fact that we are seeing a slight uptick in the number of cases, so we cannot get complacent. And of course, the new protocols that have been announced by the Prime Minister, we would want to encourage all Jamaicans to observe those protocols. There are some other developments taking place which I didn't mention. This week, we demonstrated at Spanish Town Hospital the new testing, the antigen test that is now in a pilot phase, having gone through training, where 9 institutions are offering the antigen test. It's a quick test, meaning half an hour turnaround time, 30 minutes, much shorter than the gold standard PCR test. It has to be administered under certain conditions. Symptomatic patients, there has to be a reporting arrangement once patients are tested in the case of the private space, private sector. And where you have a symptomatic person who tests negative, they are recommended to do the PCR. So there is a protocol around the antigen test, but it certainly will add to the capacity of the public space because it can be administered in a hospital, and I believe Cornwall Regional is one of the locations, Errol, where the antigen test is being administered. So it's being administered right here in St. James under particular conditions. The 3 or 4 weeks of that administering of the tests will tell us a lot in terms of better information. During this period, we will finalize the training with, I am told, some 11 private labs, And they will then be in a position, and they have already started, I understand, to negotiate terms with the suppliers. They'll be in a position to offer the antigen tests. So you will have the private sector offering and the public sector offering on a wider scale after the next 3 weeks. So we will ensure it's in a number of hospitals, all hospitals actually, and a number of health centers. So that for us is a good development that has taken place. Beyond that, we want to again encourage all of Jamaica. Let's observe the protocols. Let's enjoy the season. Santa is out and about and will live through us. So reach out and encourage someone. And let us look forward to 2021, when I believe we will crack the challenge of COVID. I certainly hope that we will, so that we can get back to doing the things that we are accustomed to. Thank you. Have a good evening, and God bless you. That's it. All right. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.